I'm at the Fairbanks House today. Very trafficy, so excuse the noise. It's the oldest standing wood frame house, still standing, in the U.S. It was built in 1636, as you can see on the chimney. However, when I was a child, I remembered the chimney being white and it being painted in black numbers, 1637. This is a very special place to me for a number of reasons. One, of course, being that both sides of my family are from Dedham, on this street, as a matter of fact. So I was taken to the Fairbanks House many, many times growing up as a child. And I have a spooky story of my own. It's allegedly haunted, but we'll get to that in a minute. If the name Fairbanks sounds familiar, it's because the actor Douglas Fairbanks is a distant relative. Before I get into my creepy experience, I think I should probably give you a little bit of a backstory and history on the house. It was built by Jonathan and Grace Fairbanks, immigrants from Yorkshire. And by the way, I will say for my English friends, 1636 does not seem very old. Some of the places I love that I've stayed in were 500 years old before this house was even thought of. However, I'll get back to Jonathan and Grace Fairbanks and their 6 children. They were given a land grant of 12 acres of land because they were one of the founding families of the town of Dedham. He was fairly prosperous because his trade was, and I know this might sound funny today, he made a lot of money building spinning wheels, something that everybody at the time required, but not everybody could actually build for themselves. Now I'll get to the scary parts of the Fairbanks house because that's probably more what you've been waiting for. My story is that when I was a small child and I used to be taken here, there were dolls, and they were mighty scary. Not one, but one in particular. The other was fine. And I'm talking about it was so scary that I couldn't even stand to be in the room with it, and I was not a fanciful child. When I would get home, this doll would still be on my mind. It was that upsetting to me. They were dolls that were from the early part of the last century, and the male doll was dressed in formal attire. I would say he was a porcelain. I've never touched him. I never wanted to. So it was probably a bisque or a porcelain face. However, for some reason, it had blanched out to almost a pure white. The other doll's face was fine. He was dressed in formal attire. He had curly hair and a mustache, and it looked as if the hair was made of human hair. But I'm telling you, this doll gave off the most horrible vibe you could ever imagine. I could not stand being in the same room with it. Well, flash forward to when I was an adult, and I heard a story about the Fairbanks house that was very, very distressing to me, and I'm glad I didn't know it as a child. Jason Fairbanks, who was a descendant, in 1801 at 20 years old, murdered his sweetheart. See, he intended to marry her, and she had no intention of marrying him. He was alleged, and I quote, it said, a spoiled brat who had to have his way. And on May 18th of 1801, he came running in telling them that Elizabeth Fales, his sweetheart, had committed suicide. However, when they found the body in Mason's pasture next to the birch grove, which is now lost to time, it probably was somewhere over here. However, as I said, they claim it's been lost to time where that pasture actually was. They found her body, and she had been stabbed 11 times. Well, needless to say, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to die. He was kept in the Dedham jail, and his brother, his nephew, his friend, and a cousin helped him escape. However, luckily, he was caught just fleeing into Canada on the New York state border. He was taken back and kept in the Boston jail, where he was hanged. And 10,000 people showed up to see the execution. Apparently that trial in the day was probably the equivalent of what the OJ trial was. There was a book even written about it. However, they said it can't be found now. It would be really something if they actually could find the book. Well, here's the catch to this. After hearing that story, it wasn't lost on me that the 2 dolls were a bride and a groom. And I've got a PS to this. Last night I was here with Mom for a ghost hunt, and when we asked about the dolls, because they're no longer present, the docent looked at my mom with very big eyes, and he said, oh, those are wrapped up and put away, never to come out again. The creepy dolls, those are very spooky. Could someone have thought of that when I was 6 before I became traumatized? soap.